She was kicked out by in-laws after husband's death, but unexpectedly, a vampire king rescued her. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Life had been calm for Lily. She had a simple, modest life in the suburbs, happily married to a kind-hearted man named Thomas. Together, they built their life, starting from scratch, sharing small joys, and dreaming of a peaceful future. But when Thomas died unexpectedly in a car accident, everything changed in an instant. The love of her life was gone, and Lily was left alone in the world. The grief was unbearable, but it wasn't just the loss of her husband that haunted her. It was the cruelty of her in-laws. The very family that once embraced her now turned their backs on her. Without warning, Lily was thrown out of the home she had shared with her husband. They claimed she had no rights to the property, that she had no place in their family anymore. Her heart shattered not just from the death of Thomas, but from the betrayal she felt from those she thought would be there for her. With nowhere else to go, Lily found herself on the streets. The world felt colder than ever. She wandered aimlessly, her thoughts consumed by the harshness of her reality. She had no job, no money, and no one left to turn to. The people she had once trusted were now distant, strangers who barely acknowledged her existence. Days passed in a blur of loneliness and despair. Lily took odd jobs here and there, just enough to get by, but it was never enough to keep the darkness of hopelessness from closing in on her. It was on one particularly cold evening that everything changed. Lily was walking through the park, her coat barely shielding her from the chill, when she heard footsteps behind her. At first, she thought nothing of it, but the footsteps grew closer, faster. Before she could react, a strong hand grabbed her arm. Her heart raced, and she tried to pull away, but the grip was too tight. "What do you think you are doing here, wandering the streets alone?" The man's voice was low, cold, with an unsettling edge. Lily froze, terrified. She turned to face her assailant, but what she saw left her speechless. The man was tall, his eyes glimmering like molten amber, his features sharp and almost inhuman. He didn't look like someone from the streets. He looked like someone from another world entirely. I was just walking," she stammered, struggling to free herself. But he didn't let go. Instead, his gaze softened, almost as if something about her caught his attention. "You don't belong here," he said, his voice surprisingly gentle now, though it still carried an air of power. "Come with me. You are in danger here." Lily blinked, unsure if she was dreaming. Who was this man? And why did he care? But before she could protest, he had already started leading her away, his hand never leaving her arm. With every step they took, Lily felt a strange sense of safety begin to settle over her, something she hadn't felt in a long time. He guided her through the dark streets, away from the danger, into the unknown. And when they reached a grand, imposing mansion, Lily could only stare in awe. The man turned to her, his expression unreadable. "I am King Alaric," he said simply, "and you are now under my protection." Little did Lily know, this encounter would change everything. Not just for her survival, but for her heart as well. The mansion was far beyond anything Lily had ever imagined. Its towering spires reached for the sky, the stone walls bathed in the soft glow of the moonlight. She had never seen such grandeur, and for a moment, she wondered if she had somehow wandered into a dream. King Alaric, the man who had appeared out of nowhere and taken her under his protection, led her through the massive iron gates, his hand still firmly on her arm. His presence was unlike anything she had ever felt, a quiet, unyielding power that seemed to vibrate in the air around him. "You are safe now," he said as they walked up the grand staircase to the front door. Lily wanted to ask questions, so many questions, but something about the way he spoke, so calm, so certain, made her hold her tongue. What was this place? Who was he, really? She was about to find out. The inside of the mansion was just as awe-inspiring as the exterior. Dark wooden floors gleamed under the soft light of crystal chandeliers, and walls lined with bookshelves stretched up to the high ceilings. It was elegant, yes, but there was something old, almost ancient, about the atmosphere. Lily followed Alaric through the hallways. each step echoing through the empty spaces. He led her to a large room with a fire crackling in the hearth, its warmth a welcome contrast to the cold air outside. "This will be your room for the night," he said, gesturing to the large four-poster bed draped with dark velvet curtains. Lily hesitated, still processing everything that had happened. Just hours ago, she had been on the streets, struggling to survive, and now she was here, in a mansion with a man who claimed to be a vampire king. Was she safe? Or had she just traded one kind of danger for another? "You must be tired," Alaric continued, his tone soft but commanding. "Rest. We will talk in the morning." He gave her a look, one that seemed to say he knew what she was thinking but would not push her. "You're not alone here," he added before turning to leave the room. "There are others who serve here, but you will be safe. No harm will come to you." Lily stood in the center of the room, her mind racing. Her heart still pounded in her chest from the encounter with the man on the street. But now, the fear she had felt earlier seemed to be replaced with a strange sense of curiosity. This place, this king, was unlike anything she had ever known. She was about to learn that the world she had lived in was only a small part of something much larger, far beyond her understanding. As the door closed behind him, Lily sat on the bed, her thoughts swirling. She had no idea how she had ended up here, or what would happen next, but for the first time in weeks, she felt a flicker of hope. The world she had known, with its cruelty and abandonment, seemed a distant memory in this moment. She might not have all the answers, but she knew one thing for certain: her life had changed forever the moment she crossed paths with King Alaric. Meanwhile, Alaric walked down the long corridor, his thoughts heavy. He had seen many things in his long life, but something about Lily struck him in a way he couldn't explain. There was a quiet strength in her, a resilience that mirrored the one he had once known in his own past. He had not expected to encounter her on that fateful night, but the moment their paths crossed, he knew she was important, more than she could possibly realize. She was meant for something greater, something that would come to light in time. And yet, as much as he wanted to protect her, a part of him wondered if he was ready for the consequences of bringing her into his world. The world of vampires, of kings and power, was not a kind one, and no one ever left it unscathed. As the night stretched on, Lily lay in the bed, her eyes wide open, her mind racing with thoughts of what lay ahead. The mansion was silent, save for the crackling of the fire and the soft whispers of the wind outside. It was a silence that felt both comforting and unnerving, a silence that held secrets Lily could never have imagined. She didn't know it yet, but her journey had only just begun. The morning light crept through the heavy curtains, casting a soft glow across the room. Lily stirred, waking to the unfamiliar surroundings. For a moment, she didn't know where she was, but as the events of the previous night came rushing back, she remembered. The mansion, the vampire king. She sat up in the large, plush bed, running her hands through her hair. The warmth of the fire had already faded, leaving the room cool but still inviting. It was hard to believe that just days ago, she had been on the streets, struggling to survive. Now, she was here, in a place that seemed like something out of a fairy tale. The quiet comfort of the room felt almost like a dream, too perfect to be true. As she stood and walked toward the window, she caught a glimpse of the sprawling gardens outside. There were fountains, lush greenery, and flowers in full bloom, a stark contrast to the cold, harsh city streets she had once known. She wasn't sure what to make of it all. Her heart still carried the weight of the past, the death of her husband, the betrayal of her in-laws. But here, in this strange new world, it felt as if time had stopped. She had a moment to breathe. She could feel the tension in her chest start to loosen, but only slightly. Her thoughts were interrupted by the soft knock on the door. "Come in," she called, her voice barely above a whisper. The door creaked open, and a woman entered, her presence graceful and commanding. She was dressed in a simple yet elegant gown, her dark hair tied back in a neat bun. "Good morning, Miss Lily," the woman said, her voice smooth and polite. "I have been asked to bring you breakfast." "Thank you," Lily replied, still feeling a bit out of place. The woman set a tray down on the small table by the window, where the sunlight now streamed in. There were fresh fruits, warm bread, and a cup of what appeared to be tea. It all smelled delicious, but Lily's appetite was nowhere near where it needed to be. She sat down at the table, picking up a slice of bread, though her mind was elsewhere. "How long have I been here?" she asked, unsure how to start a conversation in such a strange place. The woman gave her a small, understanding smile. "You've been here for 2 days, Miss Lily. The king has given instructions for you to have whatever you need. We are here to serve you." Lily paused, taking in the woman's words. The king had given instructions for her. She was still processing the fact that a vampire king, had stepped into her life so suddenly and changed everything. "Thank you," Lily said again, though she still felt like she was stumbling through a fog. The woman nodded and turned to leave, but before she closed the door, she hesitated. "The king would like to see you this afternoon," she said, her tone respectful but with a hint of something else, perhaps curiosity. Lily looked up, a bit startled. "The king?" she asked. "Why?" The woman didn't respond immediately, instead giving a small bow. "I'm sure the king will explain everything when you meet." With that, she left the room, leaving Lily alone with her thoughts once more. As the door clicked shut, Lily felt a knot form in her stomach. What did King Alaric want with her? Why had he taken such an interest in her? He had been kind to her the night before, rescuing her from danger and bringing her here, but Lily couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to his story, and hers, than met the eye. She had no choice but to wait for the afternoon, for the moment when she would finally learn the truth. Hours passed slowly as Lily tried to focus on the strange new life she had found herself in. She spent time in the gardens, exploring the vast grounds, but her mind kept drifting back to Alaric. Who was he really? What did he want from her? The air grew cooler as the afternoon approached, and Lily returned to her room to prepare for her meeting with the king. She changed into a simple gown, feeling oddly self-conscious about her appearance. As she adjusted the fabric around her waist, she caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror. She didn't recognize the woman staring back at her. She was no longer the same person who had been cast out onto the streets, desperate and alone. Here, in this new life, she could almost forget the pain that had haunted her for so long. When the time came, Lily made her way to the grand hall, her heart racing with anticipation. The sound of her footsteps echoed in the large, empty space, and she wondered what awaited her. She had no idea that the answers she sought were just beyond the grand doors of the throne room. As she approached, she could hear the soft murmur of voices. She paused before the doors, taking a deep breath. Whatever was to come, she knew she couldn't go back to the life she had once known. Not now. Not after everything that had changed. As Lily approached the grand doors of the throne room, her heart raced in her chest. She had no idea what awaited her on the other side, but the weight of the unknown pressed heavily on her. She paused just outside, taking a deep breath to steady herself. Everything in her life had changed in the span of a few short days. From the streets to a mansion, from despair to a strange kind of security, but now she was about to face the man who had taken her in. The man who called himself a vampire king. She had so many questions. Why her? Why had he saved her? What was his real intention? These questions swirled in her mind as she lifted her hand to the large, ornate doors and pushed them open. The throne room was breathtaking. Tall, vaulted ceilings stretched high above, adorned with intricate patterns that seemed to shimmer in the flickering light of the torches lining the walls. The room was vast, more a hall than a room, with cold stone floors polished to a mirror-like shine. At the far end, seated on a grand, towering throne, was Alaric, the vampire king. He was watching her, his amber eyes glowing faintly in the dim light, his presence as commanding as ever. His dark robes draped elegantly around his form, and his expression was unreadable, a mask of calm that did nothing to soften the intensity of his gaze. For a moment, Lily felt small under the weight of his stare. It was as if he could see straight through her, as if he knew everything about her fears, her secrets. She hesitated at the entrance, unsure of how to proceed. But then, Alaric spoke, his voice deep and steady, filling the vast room. "Come in, Lily." His voice was surprisingly gentle, considering the power he exuded. She stepped forward, the sound of her footsteps echoing in the vast emptiness of the room. With every step, her nerves grew tighter. She had no idea how to act, what to say. Everything about this situation felt wrong, yet she couldn't deny the pull she felt toward him. Was it just his power? Or was there something more? She stopped a few feet from his throne, unsure whether she should kneel or stand. Alaric regarded her for a long moment, his gaze unreadable. Then, he motioned for her to approach. "You do not have to kneel," he said, his voice cutting through the silence. "But you should know that in this world, things are not always as they seem." His words were cryptic, leaving Lily more confused than ever. She stepped closer, her body tense as she faced him. "What do you want from me?" she asked, her voice steady, though her heart was pounding. Alaric tilted his head slightly, studying her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "I want to understand you," he replied, his voice low. "There is something about you, Lily. Something that calls to me. I do not know what it is yet, but I intend to find out." Lily felt a chill run down her spine. His words were disarming, yet they left her feeling exposed, as if he could read her thoughts. "I don't understand," she whispered, her eyes searching his. "Why did you save me? Why am I here?" Alaric's expression softened for the first time, a flicker of something that could have been sympathy, or perhaps even regret, crossing his features. "Because I saw you," he said simply. "In the darkness, I saw you. And I couldn't let you go." His words confused her further. What did he mean by that? "You saw me," she echoed, her voice barely a whisper. "I was just a woman on the streets, no different from any other." "That is where you are wrong," Alaric replied, his voice tinged with an emotion she couldn't quite place. "You are different. You have always been different." He stood from his throne and took a few steps toward her, his movements graceful, almost predatory. "The world you know is small, Lily. The world you came from, with its cruelty, its betrayal, it is just one part of a much larger reality. A reality you are now a part of." She could barely process his words. What did he mean? Was he talking about vampires? About this strange, new life she had found herself in? "I have no place in your world," Lily said, shaking her head. "I don't belong here." Alaric stopped in front of her, his amber eyes locked onto hers. "You belong wherever you choose to," he said softly. "But your past, your suffering, that is not your future anymore." For the first time, Lily felt a flicker of hope. His words were almost kind, yet there was something unsettling about them. Was he being sincere, or was there something more beneath the surface? As she looked into his eyes, she couldn't help but wonder, what did he really want from her? And what kind of future awaited her in this strange, powerful world? The next few days passed in a strange, dreamlike blur for Lily. Every moment felt as though it were suspended in time, a world of luxury and danger coexisting in the mansion she now called home. Her conversations with Alaric, the Vampire King, were few but profound. He had told her that she was different, that there was something in her that drew him in, but he hadn't yet explained what that something was. Lily couldn't shake the feeling that her presence in this grand mansion, surrounded by the mysterious and powerful vampire world, was not a coincidence. She spent her days wandering the mansion's sprawling grounds, trying to find peace in the serene beauty of the gardens, though her mind was always in turmoil. The questions never stopped. Why had Alaric saved her? What did he truly want from her? And why did she feel like she was starting to trust him? It was a dangerous thing, trust, especially in a place like this, where everything seemed to have a hidden agenda. Yet, despite all the uncertainty, there was an undeniable pull toward him. One evening, after dinner, Alaric invited her to his study. His voice had been calm and inviting, but there was an underlying intensity that made her heart skip a beat. When she arrived, he was standing by the large window, looking out over the grounds. He turned as she entered, his amber eyes flicking over her with that same unspoken understanding. "Come in, Lily," he said, his voice smooth, almost soothing. "I've been waiting for you." Lily hesitated at the door, unsure of how to approach him in this setting. She had never imagined herself in such a situation, standing before a man who was not only a king but also a vampire, a creature of legend and fear. Yet here she was, walking toward him, her every step echoing in the silence of the study. The room was large, with dark wooden shelves filled with books, and the faint smell of old parchment filled the air. Alaric motioned for her to sit in one of the chairs near his desk. He took the opposite seat, his posture relaxed, but his gaze never left her. "You've been asking questions," he said, his tone light, but laced with something deeper. "And I think it's time you got some answers." Lily's heart raced as she sat down, her hands nervously folding in her lap. I don't understand any of this, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Why me? Why did you save me? Alaric leaned back in his chair, studying her carefully. You are not like the others, Lily, he said slowly. You see, in our world, there are many beings, many creatures who seek power, who use others to climb higher. But you have something pure about you. A strength, a resilience, that is rare. Lily's mind was racing. I don't understand, she said, shaking her head. What do you mean? I was just a woman struggling to survive. Alaric's eyes softened, and for a moment, there was something almost tender in his gaze. That's what makes you different, he said, his voice low. You've faced hardship, betrayal, and yet, you have not given in. You are more than you realize. Lily's heart clenched. She had faced so much in her life. Losing her husband, being cast aside by his family. But she had always managed to survive, somehow. But was that enough to make her different? Was that enough to explain why Alaric had taken such an interest in her? But why me? She asked again, her voice stronger this time. Why did you save me? Alaric leaned forward, his gaze never leaving hers. Because I need you, Lily, he said, his voice firm. I've been searching for someone like you. Someone who can help me break a curse that has haunted my family for centuries. Lily felt a cold shiver run down her spine. A curse? She repeated, her mind struggling to comprehend his words. What curse? Alaric sighed, his gaze momentarily turning toward the window, as if lost in thought. My bloodline is bound by a curse that was placed upon us long ago, he said. It is a curse that has been passed down through the generations. It has taken everything from us, our happiness, our future, and now, it threatens to destroy everything I have built. I need someone who can help me break it. Lily felt a knot form in her stomach. She had never imagined that the world of vampires could be so filled with darkness and secrets. And you think I can help you break this curse? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. Alaric turned his intense gaze back to her, his eyes flickering with something unreadable. Yes, he said simply. I believe you can. But it won't be easy. The curse is powerful, and there are many dangers that lie ahead. I need you by my side, Lily. You have a role to play in this. The weight of his words hung in the air between them, heavy and undeniable. Lily's mind was spinning. Could she really help him? And what would that mean for her future? She had come here thinking she was just a woman in need of a safe place to stay, but now it seemed like she had become part of something far bigger. I don't know if I'm ready for this, Lily admitted, her voice quiet but firm. I don't know if I can help you break this curse. Alaric stood up and walked over to her, his presence towering and powerful. He reached out, gently lifting her chin so that she looked into his eyes. You are stronger than you think, Lily, he said softly, and you will find the strength you need. Together, we can break this curse and change our fates. Lily looked into his eyes, her heart beating wildly in her chest. She didn't know if she was ready for the journey ahead, but she knew one thing for certain. Her life would never be the same again. The days that followed were filled with uncertainty and tension. Lily's mind was racing with the weight of the decision she had made. Alaric had shared the burden of his curse with her, and despite the fear that gripped her, she couldn't deny the strange sense of purpose that now burned within her. She was no longer just a woman trying to survive. She was part of something bigger, something that had the potential to change everything. Alaric had promised her that together they could break the curse, but as the days passed, Lily found herself growing more and more anxious. There were so many unknowns. What exactly did the curse entail? How would they break it? And what role did she really play in all of this? Alaric had explained little, only that she had a connection to the curse, something that went beyond her own understanding. The mansion had become her new home, but every corner felt both inviting and suffocating. The servants were polite, the food was exquisite, and the nights were peaceful. Yet Lily couldn't shake the feeling that the mansion held more secrets than she could ever uncover. One evening, as she was wandering the corridors, lost in her thoughts, she overheard voices coming from a room just down the hall. She hesitated before walking closer, her curiosity getting the better of her. Alaric's voice was low and commanding, but she could hear another voice as well, one that was unfamiliar. She stood just outside the door, trying to make out the conversation. She's not ready, the other voice said, a woman's voice, laced with skepticism. You can't force her into this. The curse is too dangerous, and she's just a human. What if she can't handle it? There was a long pause before Alaric spoke again. She will handle it, he said, his voice firm, but there was something in it that sounded almost weary. I have to believe that. She is the key to ending this, whether she understands it or not. Lily's heart raced as she listened to their conversation. What was going on? She had no idea what the curse truly entailed, but the fear in the other woman's voice only added to her anxiety. What did they mean when they said she wasn't ready? Was she in danger? The door creaked slightly, and Lily quickly stepped back into the shadows, her breath caught in her throat. She didn't want to be discovered eavesdropping, but her mind was spinning. She had to know more. That night, Lily couldn't sleep. She lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling, her thoughts swirling in a whirlwind of doubt and confusion. She had always thought that the worst thing that could happen to her was being cast aside, abandoned by the family she had once called her own. But now, she realized, that was nothing compared to the weight of the curse that Alaric had burdened her with. It was as if she had stepped into a world where nothing was as it seemed, a world full of darkness and magic, where the rules didn't apply to ordinary people like her. The next day, Alaric found her in the garden, her hands nervously plucking at the petals of a flower. He stood in silence for a moment before walking toward her, his footsteps heavy against the soft grass. "Lily," he said, his voice breaking the quiet. She looked up at him, her heart pounding. "I didn't mean for you to overhear that conversation," he continued, his expression unreadable. "But you need to know the truth." Lily stood up, brushing the dirt from her hands. "What truth?" she asked, her voice trembling. "What is this curse, and what am I supposed to do about it?" Alaric sighed deeply, his amber eyes softening slightly. "The curse is ancient, a binding spell placed on my bloodline long ago," he began, his voice steady but filled with an underlying sadness. "It has taken everything from us, from my ancestors to me. It prevents us from ever finding peace, from living freely. It makes us prisoners in our own bodies." He paused, as if the weight of his words had physically drained him. "I cannot break it alone. I've tried for centuries, but nothing works. But you, Lily, you are different. The connection between us is stronger than you realize. Your blood is tied to the curse in a way that I can't explain, but I know that you hold the key to its undoing." Lily felt a chill run down her spine. Her blood? What did he mean by that? "I don't understand," she said, shaking her head. "How can I help? I'm just me." Alaric stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. "You are more than you think," he said quietly. "I know you feel powerless, but you are not. You have a strength within you that you have yet to tap into. Together, we can break the curse, but you must trust me." Lily swallowed hard, trying to process everything. Trust him? After everything that had happened? After hearing the doubt in the woman's voice the night before? But as she looked into Alaric's eyes, something stirred deep within her. Despite the fear, despite the confusion, she felt a strange pull toward him. "What do I have to do?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Alaric smiled, though there was still an edge of sorrow in his expression. "We will begin the ritual tomorrow," he said. "And together, we will end this curse. For good." Lily nodded, her heart heavy but determined. She didn't know what lay ahead, but she knew one thing for sure. Her life was about to change forever. The night before the ritual, Lily couldn't sleep. The weight of what she was about to do pressed heavily on her chest, making every breath feel like an effort. She lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling, the vast mansion around her feeling more like a prison than a sanctuary. What if she wasn't ready? What if she failed? The fear gnawed at her, twisting in her stomach. She had never been a part of something so powerful, so dangerous. Alaric had explained the ritual in vague terms, something about her blood, the curse, and a magical bond, but the details were still unclear. She wasn't sure she understood her role fully, but Alaric had been so sure. His confidence, while reassuring, also felt like a heavy burden. She wasn't sure how much more of this she could take. The next morning, Alaric came to her room, his expression serious, his eyes holding a depth of something that was almost sorrow. "It's time," he said softly. Lily nodded, though her heart was racing. She followed him through the dark hallways of the mansion, her steps echoing off the stone walls. Every turn they made seemed to take her deeper into the heart of the place, further away from the life she had once known. They arrived at a small, secluded chamber in the mansion, a room that Lily had never seen before. It was lined with ancient symbols, their meaning unclear to her. A large stone altar sat in the center of the room, surrounded by candles that flickered with an eerie, unnatural glow. The air felt thick, charged with an energy she couldn't quite understand. Alaric turned to her, his face impassive, though his eyes softened when they met hers. "This is where it begins," he said. "The ritual will break the curse, but you must be willing to let go of everything. Everything you are, everything you've known." Lily's stomach tightened at his words. Let go? Could she really do that? "What do I have to do?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Alaric gestured toward the altar. "Lie down here," he instructed. "We will use your blood to break the curse, but it must be done in this chamber, with the ancient symbols to guide us." Lily's mind raced. Blood? She was about to give her blood to help break a curse that had haunted his family for centuries. It sounded like something out of a nightmare, but there was no turning back now. She walked to the altar, her legs shaky, her thoughts a whirlwind of fear and uncertainty. As she lay down, she looked up at Alaric, her eyes searching his. "What happens if it doesn't work?" she asked, her voice trembling. Alaric's expression softened, and he knelt beside her, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. "Then we keep trying," he said quietly. "I won't let anything happen to you, Lily." His words, though comforting, did little to ease the storm of emotions within her. She didn't know what she was getting herself into, but she had to trust him. She had to. Alaric began to speak in a low, ancient language, his voice carrying a deep resonance that seemed to vibrate through the room. As he spoke, the symbols on the walls began to glow faintly, their light growing stronger with every word. Lily's heart began to race as she felt the air around her shift, charged with the strange magic that filled the chamber. She could feel the energy building, swirling around her, but she didn't know what it all meant. Alaric's eyes never left her, his gaze intense and full of something she couldn't quite name. "This is it," he said, his voice a low murmur. "When the blood is spilled, the curse will begin to break. But we must finish the ritual, no matter what happens." Lily nodded, her breath coming faster as he gently took her hand, pressing her palm against the cold stone of the altar. With a sharp motion, Alaric cut her palm with a small, silver blade, and Lily gasped as the pain shot through her arm. Blood began to drip onto the stone, the warm red liquid pooling around her hand. She felt a strange sensation, as if the world around her was spinning faster, like the walls themselves were alive with the magic in the air. The symbols on the walls flared brightly, casting an eerie light over the room, and for a moment, Lily's vision blurred. A sense of power surged through her, and she felt a deep, overwhelming connection to something ancient, something far beyond her understanding. The pain in her palm intensified, but it was no longer the only thing she felt. There was something else, something dark and heavy. Alaric's voice echoed in the room, chanting the ancient words that seemed to pull at the very fabric of the air around them. The room trembled, and Lily felt a deep, unsettling force tug at her soul. She closed her eyes, trying to steady her breathing, but the energy around her was so intense that it made her feel as if she were being pulled apart. Her heart pounded in her chest, each beat like a drum, but there was no turning back now. "Hold on," Alaric said, his voice strained. "We're almost there." The last of her blood dripped onto the stone, and with a sudden, sharp crack, the air around them seemed to shatter. The symbols on the walls erupted with a blinding light, and Lily's whole body went rigid. For a moment, she thought she might pass out, but then, everything went still. The room was silent. The energy that had filled the space seemed to dissipate, leaving an eerie calm in its wake. Lily opened her eyes, her body trembling with exhaustion. Alaric was standing over her, his face unreadable, but his amber eyes were filled with something she couldn't quite decipher. "It's done," he said quietly. But Lily could feel that the world had changed. Something had shifted. Something had been broken. But what exactly? And what would it mean for her future with Alaric? She didn't know, but she couldn't deny that her life, and the world around her, had just become a whole lot more uncertain. The silence in the chamber was deafening. Lily lay there on the altar, her body still trembling, unsure if what had just happened was real. The pain in her palm was still sharp, though the warmth of her blood had long since faded. The air around her felt different now, like something had shifted, something ancient had been broken. But what exactly? The room, which had once been filled with intense energy, now felt oddly calm. As the light from the symbols on the walls dimmed, Lily blinked, trying to make sense of the stillness. Alaric was standing just a few feet away, his face a mask of unreadable emotions. He had been so sure that this ritual would break the curse, but there was no way for her to know if it had worked. The room, for all its eeriness, was no different than before. Alaric. Lily's voice was barely above a whisper. What happened? He stepped forward, his expression softening as he knelt beside her. His amber eyes, which had been filled with intensity during the ritual, were now filled with something more gentle. It is done, he said quietly, though his voice carried the weight of something more profound. Lily looked at him, searching his eyes for any sign of what came next. Did it work? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. Alaric's gaze was steady as he looked at her, but there was something in his eyes, something that made her heart skip a beat. I believe it has, he said, his voice a little strained. But we must wait and see. Magic this powerful always takes time to reveal its true effects. Lily nodded, though she wasn't sure how much comfort his words brought. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust him, but everything about this world, about the curse, felt like it was just beyond her reach. She had done everything she could, given her blood, her trust, but was it enough? She sat up slowly, feeling the weight of exhaustion in her bones. The altar beneath her was cold, and the stillness of the room only made her feel more isolated, more disconnected from the life she had known before. The world outside the mansion, the world she had once been a part of, felt so far away now. Alaric stood and offered her a hand. Come, he said softly. Let us leave this place. You've done well. His words were reassuring, but Lily still felt a chill in her chest. Something was not quite right. She couldn't shake the feeling that the curse had not been fully broken, that there was something more, something deeper, that she was yet to understand. She allowed him to help her to her feet, though she could barely muster the strength to stand. She felt weak, both physically and emotionally, drained from the ritual and the weight of the unknown. As they walked together through the dark, silent hallways of the mansion, Lily's thoughts raced. The curse had been Alaric's burden for centuries, and now it was hers as well. But had she truly been the key to breaking it? And if so, what did that mean for her future? For Alaric's future? They reached the large, ornate doors of the chamber, and as Alaric pushed them open, the cool night air hit her face. The mansion's garden, once a place of calm, now seemed to stretch endlessly before her, a vast expanse of unknowns. The moonlight bathed the grounds in a silver glow, casting long shadows across the stone path. It was beautiful, but Lily couldn't shake the feeling that something was waiting for them, something ominous, something still tied to the curse they had tried to break. Do you feel it? Alaric's voice broke through her thoughts. She turned to him, confused. Feel what? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. The change, he said softly, his eyes scanning the darkness around them. The curse is breaking, but its grip is not easily loosened. It will fight to remain. You must be prepared, Lily. His words made her heart race again. What did he mean by that? Was the curse really broken, or was this just the beginning of something far worse? Before she could ask more questions, Alaric reached out, taking her hand in his. The warmth of his touch grounded her in the moment, but the unease in her chest only grew. As they stood there in the garden, the sounds of the night seemed to grow louder, the chirping of the crickets, the rustle of the leaves in the wind. But underneath it all, Lily could feel it. A presence, a dark, swirling energy that seemed to be watching them from the shadows. Her instincts screamed at her to move, to run, but she stayed rooted in place, unable to tear her gaze away from the darkness. Alaric, too, seemed to sense it. His grip on her hand tightened, and for a moment, he looked back at the mansion, his expression tense. We're not alone, he murmured, his voice low. Lily's heart skipped a beat. What was happening? And who, or what, was lurking in the shadows, waiting to strike? The air in the garden seemed to grow colder, the once peaceful night now charged with an unsettling energy. Lily could feel it, a dark presence, lurking in the shadows, just beyond the reach of the moonlight. Alaric stood beside her, his grip tightening around her hand as his amber eyes scanned the darkness, every muscle in his body tense, alert. They were not alone. Stay close, Alaric murmured, his voice low, filled with a rare tension. He took a step forward, pulling her gently along with him. Lily followed, though her mind was racing with questions. What was this dark presence? Was it the curse fighting to hold on, or something else entirely? The garden, which had once seemed so tranquil, now felt like a labyrinth, its paths twisting and turning as if alive. The rustle of the leaves the breeze, the soft chirping of crickets, all of it felt amplified, like the world itself was holding its breath. Alaric's pace quickened, and Lily could feel the urgency in his movements. They had to get inside, but Lily couldn't shake the feeling that something was right behind them, watching, waiting. She glanced over her shoulder but saw nothing, only the deep shadows cast by the tall trees. Yet, she knew something was out there. The darkness itself seemed to stretch and shift unnaturally. "What is it?" Lily asked, her voice trembling despite her best efforts to remain calm. "What's out there?" Alaric didn't answer immediately. His gaze flicked to the shadows once more, his lips pressing into a thin line. "The curse has not been broken fully," he said after a long pause. "There are forces at play here that you do not yet understand." His words sent a chill down her spine. "Forces? What forces?" She was about to ask more, but before she could, a distant sound cut through the night. A low growl, deep and menacing, like the rumble of thunder. Lily froze, her heart pounding in her chest. Alaric's eyes narrowed, and his hand tightened around hers. "Run," he commanded, his voice urgent. Without thinking, Lily obeyed. She ran beside him, her breath coming in sharp gasps as they navigated the winding garden paths. Her mind was a blur, adrenaline surging through her as she tried to keep pace with Alaric. The growl grew louder, closer, and then she heard something else, the sound of footsteps, heavy and deliberate, following them in the shadows. She risked a glance over her shoulder again, but this time, she saw something huge and dark, moving swiftly between the trees, its eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Her blood ran cold. Whatever it wasn't human. Alaric turned sharply, leading her down a narrow path that led toward the back of the mansion. The footsteps behind them grew louder, and Lily's pulse quickened. "Hurry!" Alaric barked, his voice filled with urgency. They were almost there, just a few more steps, but the growl was growing louder, more terrifying, as if the creature was closing in. Lily's breath hitched as she stumbled, her legs growing weaker with each passing moment. Then, just as they reached the back door, the creature pounced. A flash of movement in the darkness, sharp claws, glowing eyes, and a force that knocked them both to the ground. Lily cried out, but Alaric was already on his feet, pulling her up with him as he drew something from his waist. A blade. It glinted in the moonlight, sharp and deadly. The creature, if it could even be called that, lunged at them, its fangs bared, its eyes filled with an unnatural hunger. Alaric moved with a speed that left Lily breathless. He thrust the blade forward, and the creature howled, stepping back, but only momentarily. It was like it was made of shadows, unable to be fully struck. "This is not the end of it," Alaric muttered, his voice grim as he thrust the blade forward again, aiming for the creature's heart. But it seemed to vanish, retreating into the shadows as quickly as it had appeared. The only thing left was the eerie silence, broken only by their labored breathing. Lily stared at the spot where the creature had been, still reeling from the shock. "What was that?" she gasped, her voice shaky. Alaric's face was hard, his expression distant. "A guardian," he said simply. "One of many. They are tied to the curse, sent to stop anyone who tries to break it." Lily's head spun. Guardians? How many of them were there? How much danger was she really in? "We need to go inside," Alaric said, his tone sharp now, the urgency clear in his eyes. Without another word, he ushered her through the back door, slamming it shut behind them. They stood in the dimly lit hallway of the mansion, the heavy silence surrounding them. Lily's thoughts raced, and she tried to process what had just happened. The curse was not broken. The creature they had encountered was just one of many guardians sent to protect it, and Lily was somehow tied to all of this. Alaric turned to her, his eyes filled with something that resembled regret. "I should have told you earlier," he said softly, his voice heavy with guilt. "The curse is more than you know. And now, because of you, it will not go quietly. You are the key to breaking it, but you are also its greatest threat." Lily's heart skipped a beat. She was the key? She was the one who could end it, but also the one who would bring it all crashing down. What does that mean? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Alaric didn't answer immediately. He stepped closer, his hand gently touching her arm. It means that you are in more danger than ever before, he said quietly. But you are not alone. I will protect you, Lily. No matter what happens, we will face this together. But as the shadows in the hallway stretched long around them, Lily couldn't shake the feeling that even Alaric's protection might not be enough. Something was coming. Something that would change everything. The mansion felt different now. The heavy silence that had once seemed so peaceful now pressed down on Lily. Each hallway and shadow feeling charged with the weight of something waiting to be unleashed. She sat in her room, staring out the window at the darkened garden, her mind racing. The creature, the guardian, had been a shock, but it was what Alaric had said afterward that kept playing over and over in her head. She was the key. She was the one who could break the curse, but also the one who could destroy everything. How was that possible? She had been an ordinary woman just days ago. Now, she was entangled in a world of vampires, curses, and dark forces that seemed to bend reality itself. She had trusted Alaric, but even his promises of protection couldn't ease the fear that gripped her heart. What if she couldn't do it? What if she failed and brought ruin to everyone around her? What if she was too weak to handle the power she was now connected to? The door to her room creaked open, and Alaric stepped inside. His usual calm demeanor was replaced with a tension Lily had never seen before. His amber eyes, normally warm and steady, were now dark with concern. He didn't speak right away, just stood by the door, watching her. Alaric, Lily said, her voice trembling slightly. What exactly am I supposed to do? Alaric walked over to her, his footsteps heavy, but he didn't sit. Instead, he stood in front of her, his hands clasped in front of him. I wish I could give you a simple answer, he said quietly. But the truth is, this curse is more complicated than either of us imagined. I don't understand, Lily said, her voice barely above a whisper. I thought I was supposed to help break it, but now I feel like I'm just making everything worse. Alaric sighed deeply and sat beside her on the edge of the bed. The curse has a long history, he explained. It's not just a spell that can be easily undone. The guardians, the ones who protect the curse, are part of a much larger system, one that's been in place for centuries. They were created to prevent anyone from breaking the curse and disrupting the balance of power. Lily's heart sank. So, what does that mean for me? She asked, the fear rising in her chest again. You're not just a key to breaking the curse, Alaric said, his voice low and serious. You are the one who can destroy it. But that destruction doesn't come without consequences. There are forces, powerful forces, that want to keep the curse in place, and they will stop at nothing to keep it from breaking. Lily swallowed hard, trying to process everything he was saying. But I thought you were going to protect me, she whispered. I am, he replied, his eyes meeting hers, soft but filled with something that made her stomach flutter. But the truth is, Lily, the moment you became involved in this, you became part of something far larger than either of us. You are tied to this curse in ways that I cannot fully explain, and I cannot promise that there will be no danger. She stared at him, her mind still spinning. She had come to this mansion to escape, to find safety, but now it seemed like she had only stepped into a deeper darkness. I don't want to be part of this, Lily said, her voice shaking with the weight of her fear. I didn't ask for any of this. Alaric reached out and gently took her hand, his touch warm and reassuring. I know, he said softly, but you are already here, and there is no going back now. The curse has chosen you, and so have I. His words struck her like a lightning bolt. What did he mean by that? Was it fate? Had she truly been chosen for something? She wasn't sure she wanted to know the answer. I don't know if I can do this, she whispered, her hand tightening around his. I don't know if I have the strength. Alaric stood up and pulled her gently to her feet, his hands still holding hers. You do, he said firmly. You have more strength than you realize. And you are not alone in this. We will face it together. The way he said it, with such certainty, made her believe him, even if just for a moment. But the fear still lingered deep inside her. What if she couldn't do it? What if the curse was too strong? She wanted to believe that breaking it was possible, that they could fight the darkness and win, but the odds felt stacked against them. What do we do now? Lily asked, looking up at Alaric, her heart heavy with the weight of her uncertainty. We prepare, Alaric said, his voice steady. The next step in breaking the curse is to find the source of its power. We must locate the heart of the curse itself, the place where it all began. Lily nodded, though her mind was filled with doubt. The heart of the curse? Where was that? How would they find it? She had no answers, but she knew one thing for sure. Her life had been irreversibly changed. She had stepped into a world she never knew existed, a world of vampires, curses, and dark forces. And now, there was no turning back. Are you ready? Alaric asked, his gaze meeting hers with an intensity that made her heart race. Lily took a deep breath and nodded, though the fear still clung to her. She wasn't sure if she was ready, but she had no choice. She had to face this. She had to fight. Together, they would either break the curse or be consumed by it. And Lily wasn't sure which outcome terrified her more. The journey to find the heart of the curse began early the next morning. Lily stood beside Alaric at the edge of the mansion's grand property, staring into the misty woods beyond. The trees loomed like silent sentinels, their branches swaying gently in the wind. It was hard to imagine that something so powerful, so ancient, could be hidden somewhere within these woods. But Alaric had been certain, and she had no choice but to trust him. "Are you ready?" he asked, his voice steady. But there was something in his eyes that betrayed a hint of concern. It wasn't for her safety, she knew. Alaric was a vampire king. Nothing in these woods could harm him. But there was something else, something deeper. The weight of their mission hung heavily in the air between them. "I think so," Lily replied, though her voice wavered slightly. She had to be ready. She had no choice. If they failed, if they couldn't find the source of the curse and break it, everything they had fought for, would be lost. Alaric gave her a small nod, his expression unreadable. Without another word, he turned and began walking into the woods. Lily followed closely behind, her steps tentative at first, but growing more confident as they ventured further into the forest. The trees grew thicker, the air colder, and the sound of the wind seemed to grow louder, as though nature itself was holding its breath. The deeper they went, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. The sunlight barely filtered through the canopy above, casting everything in a dull, eerie twilight. Lily's heart pounded in her chest, and she could feel the weight of the curse hanging over them, as though the very land itself was trying to keep them from discovering the truth. "What are we looking for?" she asked, trying to steady her nerves. Alaric glanced over his shoulder at her, his face hard as stone. "The heart of the curse is not just a place," he said, his voice low. "It's a force, a source of immense power that has been buried here for centuries. It could be anything, an object, a person, or even the land itself. We must be prepared for anything." Lily nodded, though the fear in her chest tightened. She had no idea what they were about to face. As they continued, the forest seemed to shift, the path becoming narrower and the trees more twisted. Lily could feel an uncomfortable pressure in the air, a sense of being watched. It was as if the forest was alive, and it didn't want them here. Alaric, however, seemed unfazed. He walked with purpose, his eyes scanning the shadows ahead, his every movement calculated. "There," he said suddenly, his voice cutting through the tension. Lily looked up to see a clearing ahead, bathed in an eerie, dim light. In the center of the clearing stood a massive stone monument, worn and weathered by time. It looked ancient, the carvings on its surface faded and illegible. "This is it," Alaric said, his voice hard with resolve. "The heart of the curse." Lily's breath caught in her throat as they approached the stone monument. It radiated an energy that made the hair on the back of her neck stand on end. She could feel it pulsing, a dark force that seemed to call out to her. The closer she got, the stronger the sensation became. Her chest tightened, and her thoughts became clouded with an overwhelming sense of dread. "What do we do now?" Lily asked, her voice shaky. Alaric stepped forward, his eyes locked on the monument. "We have to awaken it," he said, his voice quiet but filled with authority. "Only then can we break the curse." Lily's stomach dropped. Awaken it? How could they awaken something so powerful, so dangerous? She wanted to protest, to demand a better plan, but before she could, Alaric reached out and placed his hand on the stone. The moment his skin touched the monument, a low, rumbling sound echoed through the forest. The air seemed to vibrate with energy, and Lily stumbled back, her heart racing. The stone began to glow, the ancient symbols carved into its surface lighting up one by one. The ground beneath them trembled, and Lily could feel the weight of something immense stirring in the earth, as though the very land was waking up. "What's happening?" Lily gasped, her voice filled with fear. Alaric didn't answer. He was too focused, his hand still pressed against the stone as the light from the monument intensified. The trees around them began to shake, their branches twisting unnaturally, reaching out toward them. Lily's heart pounded in her chest as a dark figure emerged from the shadows at the edge of the clearing. It was tall, cloaked in shadows, its features obscured by the dark mist that seemed to swirl around it. The figure's eyes glowed a faint red, and Lily felt a chill run down her spine. "Alaric!" she cried, her voice filled with panic. Alaric's expression hardened as he turned to face the figure. "Stay behind me," he commanded. But it was too late. The figure lunged forward, faster than Lily could comprehend, and Alaric's blade was out in an instant, clashing with the figure's dark energy. The ground beneath them cracked open, sending a shockwave through the clearing. Lily stumbled back, her eyes wide with fear as she watched the two forces collide. This was the heart of the curse. This was the force they had come to destroy, and it was more powerful than she had ever imagined. The battle raged on, the sound of steel against darkness filling the air. Lily's breath caught in her throat as she realized that this was just the beginning. The curse was not only alive, it was fighting back, and the price of breaking it might be higher than she had ever imagined. The battle in the clearing was nothing like Lily had imagined. The air was thick with dark energy, the ground beneath her trembling as Alaric fought the shadowy figure with all the strength he could muster. The figure was relentless, its form shifting between the shadows, moving with an unnatural speed. Every strike Alaric made was met with a flash of dark energy, the clash of steel against the curse's powerful force. Lily stood at the edge of the clearing, her heart racing in her chest. The energy surrounding them was overwhelming, filling the air with an almost palpable dread. She wanted to help, to do something, anything, but every time she moved, the weight of the curse pressed down on her, a constant reminder of how little control she had over the situation. The figure lunged at Alaric once again, this time faster than before. Alaric's sword met the shadow, but the impact sent him stumbling backward. The figure was too strong, too fast. It was as if the curse itself was feeding off the darkness, growing more powerful with every moment. "Alaric!" Lily cried, unable to stay silent any longer. Her voice was sharp, filled with panic. "We need to stop this." Alaric didn't answer, but his eyes flicked toward her for a brief moment. That was all it took, a split second where he was distracted, and the shadow took full advantage, striking him with a force that sent him crashing to the ground. Lily's breath caught in her throat. She couldn't lose him, not like this. "Get up," she shouted, her voice breaking through the chaos. "You can't give up." Alaric groaned, pushing himself off the ground, his sword falling to the side. The shadow moved in, ready to strike again, but before it could reach him, Lily felt a sudden surge of something deep inside her. It was like a fire, a force she had never felt before, but it was real, raw, primal energy that seemed to come from the very heart of the curse itself. Without thinking, she reached out. The moment her hand made contact with the stone monument in the center of the clearing, a shockwave of power surged through her, and everything around her seemed to explode in a burst of light. The figure recoiled, its form flickering and faltering. Alaric took advantage of the moment, grabbing his sword and charging at the shadow with renewed strength. The fight was fierce, the clash of steel and dark energy echoing through the woods, but the shadow was weakening. With each strike, the dark form began to unravel, its presence dissipating into the air. Lily could feel the power inside her growing, pushing her to act. She didn't know how, but she knew one thing for sure. The curse had tied itself to her, and it was up to her to end it. As the shadow finally crumbled into nothing, the clearing fell silent. The dark energy that had filled the air seemed to fade away, leaving only the distant sound of the wind rustling through the trees. Lily stood there, panting, her hands trembling as she tried to process what had just happened. Alaric was standing next to her, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. His amber eyes locked onto hers, and for the first time, she saw something different in them, a mixture of awe and something deeper. You did it, he said, his voice low and full of emotion. Lily shook her head, still reeling from the rush of power that had surged through her. I didn't do anything, she whispered. It was you. You fought the curse. Alaric's expression softened, his hand gently resting on her shoulder. No, Lily, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. It was you. You broke the curse. You freed us. Lily's mind raced as the realization began to sink in. She had done it. She had broken the curse. The power that had held Alaric and his bloodline captive for centuries was gone, shattered by her. But at what cost? What had she really given up to break it? And what did this mean for her now? Alaric's eyes met hers, and for a moment, they both stood in silence, the enormity of what had just happened hanging between them. The world around them felt still, as if holding its breath. It's over, Lily said softly, though the uncertainty in her voice lingered. Is it really over? Alaric nodded, though there was still a hint of uncertainty in his own gaze. The curse is broken, he said, his voice firm. But there's more to this than just the end of the curse. There are still forces at play, forces that might not be so easily undone. Lily swallowed hard, the weight of his words pressing down on her. What does that mean for us? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Alaric stepped closer, his hand reaching out to gently cup her face. It means that we've won a battle, but the war is far from over, he said softly. We will face more challenges, more dangers. But we will face them together. Lily's heart raced as she looked into his eyes. There was no turning back now. The curse was broken, but their journey was just beginning. She had stepped into a world she never understood, and now, she was tied to it in ways she couldn't have imagined. The road ahead would be filled with uncertainty, but for the first time, she felt ready to face whatever came next, with Alaric by her side. The days following the breaking of the curse were both a relief and a new beginning. Lily and Alaric stood together, their lives forever changed by the events in the clearing. The mansion, once a place of looming uncertainty, now felt like a home, a sanctuary where they could finally begin to heal. But the road ahead was still uncertain. Alaric had kept his promise. The curse that had plagued his family for centuries was gone, shattered by Lily's strength. Yet, as much as she wanted to believe they had won, a quiet unease still lingered. The forces Alaric had warned her about, the ones that might not easily be undone, were still out there. The mansion felt quieter now, but that only made the stillness more oppressive. Lily couldn't shake the feeling that something else was coming, something darker. But she wasn't alone anymore. Alaric had been by her side throughout it all, and his presence was a constant reminder that no matter what came next, they would face it together. One evening, after the sun had set and the mansion was bathed in the soft glow of candlelight, Lily and Alaric sat together in the grand hall, a quiet calm surrounding them. The fire crackled softly in the hearth, and the weight of the world seemed momentarily far away. Do you think it's really over? Lily asked, her voice quiet, almost unsure. Alaric looked at her, his amber eyes reflecting the firelight. There was a depth in them now, a quiet understanding that had grown between them. He reached out, gently taking her hand in his. No, he said, his voice steady. But we've broken the worst of it. The curse is gone, and that means we have a chance, a real chance, to live. Lily's heart swelled at his words. It wasn't the end she had imagined when she first came to the mansion, but it was a new beginning. They weren't running anymore. They weren't hiding. They had faced the darkness and survived. I never thought I could be a part of something so big, Lily said, her voice barely above a whisper. I was just a woman trying to survive. Now, I'm tied to a vampire king and a curse that nearly destroyed everything. Alaric squeezed her hand, his smile small but sincere. You are more than just a survivor, Lily. You are the reason we're here, the reason I'm still standing. You've brought light into this world that was once shrouded in darkness. Lily smiled softly, feeling the warmth of his words seep into her chest. There was truth in them, something she had never fully believed until now. She had always thought she was just a small part of a much bigger story, something insignificant in the grand scheme of things. But now, she understood that her actions, her choices, had made a difference. I don't know what's next, Lily said, her eyes meeting his. But I know I want to face it with you. Alaric nodded, his eyes locking onto hers with a deep intensity. We'll face whatever comes together, he said firmly. You and me. The world outside might still hold dangers, and there would be more challenges ahead. But for now, in this moment, Lily felt safe. She felt certain. They would face the darkness together. And that was enough. In the days that followed, the mansion began to feel like home again. The servants, once distant and wary, now treated Lily with respect and even a sense of warmth. Alaric and Lily spent their time together, planning the future, rebuilding what had been lost. The mansion, once a symbol of the curse's power, had become a place of healing. Alaric spent time with his people, ensuring that the remnants of the curse were fully erased, and that no lingering shadows would threaten the peace they had fought so hard to achieve. As for Lily, she continued to learn about the world she had become a part of, growing into the strength that Alaric had always seen in her. She was no longer just the woman she had been before. She had faced the darkness, and now, she had the power to shape her own destiny. The world ahead was uncertain, yes, but for the first time, it was hers to create. With Alaric by her side, she knew there was nothing they couldn't overcome. The curse was broken, and together, they would face whatever came next. The future was wide open, and the possibilities were endless. In the end, it was not the darkness that defined them, but the light they brought into each other's lives. And in that light, Lily found her strength, not just as the woman who had broken a curse, but as someone who had learned to embrace her own power, her own story. They had fought together, survived together, and now, they would build a future together. The past was behind them, but the future was theirs to create. And that was all that mattered. Vampire stories have always captivated readers, and this one takes you on a thrilling journey filled with darkness, magic, and unexpected twists. Lily, a woman cast aside by her in-laws after her husband's death, finds herself in the world of a powerful vampire king, where danger and mystery lurk at every corner. As she uncovers her connection to an ancient curse, she realizes that her blood holds the key to breaking it. Alongside the vampire king, she battles dark forces, creatures guarding the curse, and her own fear, all while discovering a strength within herself she never knew existed. In this gripping tale of survival and love, vampire stories blend with ancient magic, where every choice leads to new dangers and unexpected alliances. But as the curse begins to break, Lily and the vampire king face greater challenges that threaten to undo everything they've fought for. With a future that feels both uncertain and full of possibility, this story will leave you on the edge of your seat, reminding you why vampire stories continue to fascinate and captivate. The battle against the curse is far from over, but with courage and trust, Lily and the vampire king will face whatever comes next. Dive into the world of vampire stories where nothing is what it seems, and the stakes are higher than ever.